CinemaJaw is sponsored by Overcast, an independent podcast app that embraces the open world of podcasting instead of locking it down. No exclusives, no premium content, no paywalls. Just a great podcast app for everyone. Get it for free in the App Store. And we thank them for their support. You're listening to CinemaJaw, the greatest movies podcast ever, recorded on location from our respective homes in Chicago. My name is Matt Kay, and with me is
Rye the Movie Guy, and sitting inside the fish tank is Filmy and Phil.
What's up, guys?
This week on CinemaJaw, Matt, we get close to our family, our grandmas specifically, as we cover our top 5 favorite grandmas in movie history.
Aw. Do you have any fun, sweet grandma memories, Ryan?
You know, we'll talk about this when we hit our top 5. There's one movie in particular that reminds me very much of not just my grandma, but being with my family in a particular instance. Mm-hmm. And I'll talk about it then. How about you?
My grandma always used to steal all the jelly and sugar packets off the table when we would go to a Denny's or a diner or something like that. All of them, not just a couple. She would take the container and just dump it into her purse. All the free stuff on the table, she stole it every time we went out to eat.
So that's where you get that from.
I think I did learn something there from my grandma. And
there's no doubt, because I've been at places that have the self-service soda, and Matt asks for water, but he gets a soda. He's one of those guys. So That's where you get it from.
I think so. And, I swear to God, I think she took ketchup bottles too. This was relentless.
That's some size purse that she had.
Oh, they were huge. Grandma purses are enormous. She could hide a small child in there.
That's hilarious. Good times. We're doing this in honor of a movie we're reviewing this week, and helping us with that review and our top 5 is going to be a great guest.
Yeah, we got Rebecca Fons. She is the new director of programming over at the Gene Siskel Film Center, and I can't wait to talk to Rebecca.
I can't wait to talk to Rebecca as well. Besides that, we have more going on, don't we, Phil?
Yeah, Ryan, it is officially February, and we sadly have to say goodbye to our Denzel Washington month, but we warmly welcome a brand new one, which we will disclose a little bit later.
Ooh, mysteries. And we have a review of Minari.
Yes, about time we talk about Minari. Minari, for the Jawheads, comes out in theaters February 12th. So this is slightly early, but it's the best time with the Jaw schedule to talk about this one.
It's one of the weird films that the schedule got really screwed up with the whole COVID shutdown, because it was out at Sundance earlier in 2020, actually. So It's part of this award cycle. So we'll be talking about it.
Yes. Another film we're going to be talking about in the upcoming weeks is a movie called Bliss that stars Owen Wilson and Salma Hayek. And I don't know, I have these random thoughts every once in a while, Matt, but I was thinking about Owen Wilson and Luke Wilson and how strange it is that the Wilson brothers, going all the way back to the early 90s, the Wilson brothers.
Early 90s,
Yeah, early 90s, the Wilson brothers, I would say, are the best brother duo to come into Hollywood.
No.
Since the early 90s.
That's not true. Since the early 90s gave us the Afflecks, right?
Oh, yeah.
They're better
than
the
same level of the Wilsons, my friend.
The Afflecks, man.
I'd take the Wilsons in a heartbeat.
I'd take the Afflecks. CinemaWAR.
CinemaWAR. Ooh, boy. Rebecca is going to have her hands full on that one, let me tell you.
All right. I'm ready.
All right. As Phil mentioned, it is February, and it is time to announce our new theme of February. This is where we pick an actor, an actress, a director, even a genre of film sometimes, Matt. Jodi Foster is going to be the actress we are celebrating the month of February.
This is a good pick, Ryan. I'm a big fan. She's amazing.
New film coming out this month, and it's just a time that we finally celebrated Jodi Foster.
I agree.
And in honor of Jodi Foster, we will be playing Jodi Foster movie trivia, yourself versus Rebecca. How does that sound, Matt?
Sounds all right.
So I think we got a pretty full jaw here.
It's jam-packed as always, Ryan.
Let's start it off, Phil, with a Jodie Foster fact.
Yes. Did you know that Jodie Foster was supposed to be in the David Fincher movie The Game? Sean's Penn role in the 97 film was actually originally written as a female character with the intention of obviously Foster portraying it. In the original script, Foster would play the original daughter of Michael Douglas's character. However, Douglas insisted that the female character be changed to his sister. Obviously, Jodie didn't like the idea as she was far too young to be playing his sister, and she was then withdrawn from the project.
I did not know that. Holy crap.
I didn't either. And I mean, in Hollywood, they play around with the ages quite a bit. Can we throw an early fish tank and get the two ages of Michael Douglas and the age difference between him and Jodie Foster?
I'll do you one better, and I'll also tell you what they were in 1997.
And throw in Sean Penn while you're at it.
And throw in Sean Penn, right, because he ended up playing his brother in it. Man, I liked The Game, but wow. What a different movie that would have been with Jodie Foster.
Yeah, although I put Sean Penn and Jodie Foster kind of on the same like even keel as far as like where I would rank them as far as talent goes and capability as an actor. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm just saying
I mean, they're both very high quality actors, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. Maybe a future CinemaWAR there. That'd be a tough one to fight on either side.
That would be.
Yep. All right, we ready to get this ball rolling, Matt K?
Indeed.
Without further ado, we bring in our guest, Rebecca Fons, newly appointed Director of Programming over at the Gene Siskel Film Center. Rebecca, welcome to Cinemajaw.
Thanks, guys. It's a pleasure to be here.
You are just crazy busy in the film world. Right before we hit record, you were telling us you're on Zoom like 3 hours already today.
Yes.
You're all over the place.
It's nuts. I mean, I've been staring at myself all night in the Zoom gallery.
So in this Zoom that we can see Rebecca in right now, the background is Park City, Utah that you have. Yeah. So explain why there is a Park City, Utah picture behind you.
Yes. Well, today, when we record this episode, the 2021 Sundance Film Festival kicks off. So, and I am involved. I usually am in Park City at this time. Usually Sundance is wrapping up. This is like the end of the festival, but they moved it all back a little bit. And it just takes place over like 4 days rather than 10. So I'm usually in Park City, usually leaving Park City around this time of year. And also I program for a cinema in Iowa City called Film Scene. And, this Film Scene is acting as a Sundance satellite screen this year. So Sundance had this kind of like crazy idea last summer when they kind of saw the writing on the wall that Sundance 2021 wasn't going to be what it usually is. And they cherry picked some cinemas across the country, about 25 of them, to act as satellite screens. So that means that we're showing in Iowa City like 8 Sundance films over the course of the next 3 days and doing some like virtual conversations. So I figured in honor of all that, I would put up a picture of the slopes of Park City on my Zoom screen.
It's beautiful. It's making me jealous. I got to get out there.
I wish I was there. I mean, even tired after like watching, 5 films a day, it's better than being there in an abstract way.
That's awesome.
So prior to getting this job over at the Gene Siskel Film Center, you also worked over at the Chicago International Film Festival, correctly?
Correct.
And what did you do for them?
I was the education director there. So for about 9 years, 9 festivals, I was with the film festival, and I was one of the year-round staff. So the festival, swells to 70 seasonal staff members and 300 plus volunteers. But there was only, and maybe even this is still the case, about 5 people that work year round. So I was the year-round education director. So I did screenings with Chicago public high school students, ran like a student film club, teacher training / like teacher media literacy training, basically. And worked with the associate board, just did all the year-round education initiatives. And then during the festival, wore like 1,000 hats and did Q&As and, rolled out the red carpet, vacuumed the red carpet sometimes, just kind of all hands on deck situation.
See, I think it's people that do the things, people like you, Rebecca, who are like the unsung heroes of cinema, because we all get so wrapped up in who are the hot directors and who's the latest actor. And we don't stop to think a lot of times about the people who are sort of making this industry turn, who are tastemakers, who are educators, stuff like that. So, I mean, it's important work.
Well, thank you. That means a lot. I mean, I think I think your listeners who maybe are defined by that or, identify with that will really appreciate that because the film festivals, there can be a lot of like pizzazz and kind of excitement. And then if you look just off the frame of like a red carpet, there's probably a huddle of people who are malnourished, haven't slept in a week, probably a little underpaid, to be totally honest, and, and working their tails off to make everything that you see, the tickets, the movie on the screen, the red carpet can happen. And it's magical. So they're the magic makers. So thanks for saying that.
You got it.
So this position over at the Gene Siskel Film Center, it is the director of programming. And for the jawheads that are not based in Chicago or do not know, the Gene Siskel Film Center is actually part of the Art Institute. And it is a complete gem here in the city. It is located right at State and Lake. It has 2 theaters in screening rooms, and you showcase all kinds of movies, international films. They even do international film festivals that are not necessarily what you think of when, say, like the Chicago International. Everybody gets the picture, but they actually target certain countries and do
niche
film
down.
festivals.
Yeah,
niche down. Yeah.
Yeah. So the position seems pretty daunting. I would be scared, but I think they hired the right person here with your background. So are you excited for this new adventure?
Yeah, I'm thrilled. I mean, excited is an understatement. I've just been sort of like buzzing with energy since the news was announced and since I joined the team. And it is daunting, especially for a number of reasons, but especially because we're still very much in a pandemic and movie theaters are still very much, very wounded soldiers in this situation. But so that's one of the daunting aspects of it. But another daunting aspect is my predecessor, Barbara, had been there for 45 years and she just retired. So I'm approaching the role with much respect to her legacy and reverence for the position and the space. I mean, I've been a member of the Gene Siskel Film Center for a long time. I've been a patron. I've been a member of the community council for many, many years. So I have, as a film lover, I have deep love and respect for the space, and the four plus walls and the team that has been there, many of them for quite some time. So it's daunting in that sense. It's daunting just if it was not COVID time, just, it's, you have to do a really complicated puzzle of what films go where, how long you can keep films, what is a balanced program. And then we happen to be in COVID times. So it's the sort of the daunting task of, programming virtually, thinking about reopening, thinking about what that means. Yeah. There's a lot of daunt in my day.
That's crazy. I wanted to talk to you about being a film lover. Where did that come from? Because you've done all these things in film, obviously making a career of this. Where did that love of cinema start? What movie was it maybe, or movies that kind of gave you this lifelong love?
That's a great question. I have watched film. Film was sort of the thing that my family, as so many families, kind of gathered around and connected around. My mom was a single mom of 3, and we didn't have a lot of money, and times were tough. We lived in a farmhouse in Iowa. And so movies were really kind of the treat,
Sure.
So, and I would remember this is really going back. I could talk about undergrad and all of the discoveries in undergrad.
This is what I want.
This is the childhood, origin story. So, I would remember vividly, she would bring home from VHS from the bargain bin, and it usually was a Godzilla film or, something like that. And also her bringing home VHSs from the rental place, they came in that blue hard plastic, case.
Sure.
And that would be popping popcorn and gathering around the VHS and around the TV, because that was what kind of was a break for us, because, we were a small family kind of getting through it. So yeah, I mean, we loved Godzilla. I loved like Jason and the Argonauts, the Don Chaffee film, sort of these like sci-fi fantasy films, which is weird because I'm not usually drawn to that genre that much as an adult and as a grown-up film watcher. But as a kid, they just took me away, and there was an escape and a promise of like a possibility that there could be magic, in this square box, in this frame. That could really show me things that I'd never seen before and take me on adventures that I had never even conceived of. So that was kind of where it crystallized it. Just film was always the thing I was drawn to. I love music. I read, I go to live performances, but it was really, that's kind of where I found my home, in terms of like arts and culture. Like that was where I just felt safe and excited and engaged.
Nice. I'm sure our listeners, the Jawheads, can relate to that for sure. I know I can.
Yeah,
absolutely. For the Jawheads that want to maybe get involved with the Gene Siskel Film Center, support them. Currently, are they doing something virtually that people can go to and rent movies through the Gene Siskel Film Center?
Yep, absolutely. So back in 2020, when most cinemas closed, I think actually I was on a call with a bunch of other art houses across the country. There were probably about 70 of us on the call. And someone said, is anybody open? Is anybody showing movies? And no one. It was like the first time I cried in the pandemic. Anyway, so early on, that was a tangent, but early on, all of our art houses and our independent cinemas really pivoted to virtual programming, and we were met by exhibitors who were, distributors who were also really, pivoting and adapting to the situation. Yeah. So yes, so at siskelfilmcenter.org, you can find a curated selection of what you would find on screen at the Film Center. The best in international titles, independent features. From time to time, you'll see shorts programs, locally connected films, and then, as you mentioned, we have some really incredible film festivals. So the Black Harvest Film Festival happened in the fall as a virtual film festival, and it was the best year Black Harvest had celebrated because more people were able, there was less of a barrier to entry. More people were able to participate. So it's a great way to support the Film Center by watching films that have been curated for your entertainment. And we've done a lot of really great things around these films. We have a series called Screen to Screen where we do conversations with filmmakers. We're bringing back our movie club, which is I'll be leading it. So it's a way to get to know me too, get a good look at me. And we'll be talking about a particular film, sometimes with like a local partner or a local voice. And then we're also about to launch some lecture series. So there's lots of ways, while we're still closed, there's lots of ways to support us. You can always just make a donation as well, renew a membership or get a membership or gift a membership, because all of that support and engagement we rely on in this time of closure for sure.
I highly encourage Jawheads to check this out because it's the silver lining in all of this with so many movie theaters being closed is that you can find these specially curated selections from a place like the Gene Siskel Film Center. So do check it out.
Yeah. I'm just really excited that there's no doubt Godzilla at some point will be programmed and play at the Gene Siskel Film Center.
Absolutely. You heard it here first, Jawheads. It will be shown.
Nice.
I love it. All right. One last question for you. You probably heard we're celebrating Jodie Foster month here on Cinemajaw, and we play this game called Keep, Destroy, Spielberg Remake. And it's just that. We give you 3 movies that Jodie Foster started. You get to keep one as is. You have to destroy one for all of time. And a third one, Steven Spielberg has to make a remake of it. And that's all we have left.
Okay.
It's a tough one.
Okay.
Your 3 Jodie Foster movies are Silence of the Lambs, Taxi Driver, and Panic Room. You have to keep one, destroy one, and have Steven Spielberg remake one.
Gosh. Okay. I'm going to keep Silence of the Lambs. It's a perfect movie. I love it. I watch it often. Like I clean the house and I like watch Silence of the Lambs in the background, which is probably weird, but it's a perfect movie. Jonathan Demme. I don't change it. Keep it forever. I would destroy Panic Room. I think it's a flawed film. I think it's a rewatchable film. I've watched it many times, but destroy it. And then I would do a Spielberg treatment of Taxi Driver just because I want to see what that is. I don't know that it would work, but I would be really curious to see his take, and then also to see Scorsese's response. I think Twitter would go crazy.
I'm sure it would. I think that's a pretty good answer, Matt. Would you change?
That's the move. No, I was trying. I mean, that's the move. You're right. You keep Silence of the Lambs. It's 100% perfect. You're never going to recreate that. Panic Room, of the two that are remaining, is the easy choice to destroy. And if you got to do a Spielberg remake, that would be bonkers to see what he does with Taxi Driver and get Tom Hanks in there as Travis Bickle.
I knew you were going to go with your Hanks joke. I love it. I'm right with you on that pick. That's good stuff. Again, Rebecca, for the jawheads that are interested and want to support the Gene Siskel Film Center, where should we send them online?
Yeah, check out siskelfilmcenter.org and also follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. If you search Siskel Film Center, you'll find us.
Sweet. Do it. And we'll put the links in the show notes as always for everybody.
Perfect.
Director Lee Isaac Chung creates semi-autobiographical drama starring Walking Dead Stephen Yeun called Minari. Does this bittersweet family farm yarn bear fruit, or does it rot on the vine? We planted the seeds of this latest pick from Studio A24 and watered it.
What a wonderful day to be in the house of the Lord. If you're here with us for the first time, please stand. What a beautiful family. Glad you're here.
How's your daddy like that new farm? He growing things good, doing things right?
Yes.
미국 애들은 할머니랑 같이 방 쓰는 거 싫어한다던데.
But I don't like Grandma.
쟤는 안 그래요. 한국애니까.
Grandma smells like Korea.
야, 뭐라고? Grandma smell?
As the movie opens, the Yee family is driving from California to a lush plot of land in rural Arkansas. They exit the car, and two kids, Anne, a mature helper type, and David, a little boy with a heart murmur, are perplexed as to why the house has wheels. Their mother, Monica, played by Han Yi Ri, seems skeptical of the whole endeavor, a look of worry on her face. But Father Jacob, Stephen Yeun, is determined to make his dream of being a farmer a reality and surveys his new land with wild optimism. Soon the family realizes that between farming and day jobs, they'll need some help looking after the kids. Enter Sunja, Monica's mother, played by Yoon-ya Jung, who's a swearing, gambling, pee-drinking, and non-cookie-making grandmother who does not fit the stereotype of what little David imagines a grandmother to be. Through money, help, health, weather, water, and fire problems, the family is strained over and over. Some relationships are tightened and others seem to be crumbling, but love and sacrifice is at the center of this movie. The setting in Chung's Minari are few, but they're all beautiful. Even the sexing hatchery where the Yees work day jobs has a worn-in rustic appeal to it. But the real star here is the sumptuous meadows of the Yee farm and the nearby creek where the film gets its title. The camera work is dreamlike and sun-drenched, and we truly see the world briefly through the eyes of each character. Another highlight here is the acting. The entire principal cast is fantastic, down to the supporting character Paul, played by Will Patton, probably his best role to date. But the big nod goes to Yoon-young Jung as the elder Yee. Her cantankerous but loving grandmother could have easily been caricature or teetered on parody, but she pulls off the tightrope act between tender and comedic perfectly. In short, the movie simply rings true. There are some heavy emotional ups and downs, but in the end, I found the film very uplifting and hopeful. It was welcome and refreshing entry. What'd you think, Rye?
Yeah, it sure was, Matt. This is the American story we need right now. A reminder that families come to this country from all parts of the world to pursue a dream. And you nailed it, Matt. The film is so extremely well acted by the entire cast. I expect a couple of nominations here come Oscar time. I also need to highlight one thing you didn't mention was how beautiful the score is of this film. The movie, as you mentioned, it opens up with that family driving to their new home in Arkansas. And the music playing over that scene is full of hope and tenderness in a way that only music can be. Another nomination for score, no doubt in my mind, and also best screenplay nomination, which I think it'll win. This is a precious film that I think many people will see their own families in. Tears were shed. I love the metaphor of planting the Minari plant near the water, and it will flourish on this land. Rebecca, you also saw Minari some time ago. Are you as high on this film as me and Matt?
Yeah, I thought it was just lovely. I saw it at Sundance a year ago, and Sundance is like, this hustle and bustle. It's really, really fast. You're kind of like thinking about your next move while you're watching the movie you're in. But with Minari, it was like a breath, a pause, a kind of like halting of the clock. Like I just felt totally absorbed by the film, totally engaged. My mind didn't wander. I was so connected with the family, as you mentioned, like right away. You're endeared to them so quickly. And I think the themes of the American dream and the American struggle, of the American dream, the kind of the baked in struggle are so beautifully portrayed. And the family is like, even though they are maybe if you're watching, they maybe are experiencing something much different. Their story might be much different from what you're experiencing, but the dynamics and the bonds are universal. The grandmother, the sassy, kind of like, troublemaking kid, the mother who's worried, but stands by, her family, the father with this determination. Those are all themes that I think people will really respond to. And it's just beautiful. And it's burned in my brain, Stephen Yeun with his, like, in the field with this red hat, and Will Patton, I'm glad you brought him up. I think he's fantastic. He's sort of like unexpected in the film. It's just really great. It's an ensemble piece, and really delicate. It sort of requires a delicate watch, but it really, really pays off, and it really, it gets what, it earns it. It really earns it.
I've described my favorite movie of 2020, First Cow, as a delicate film. And this is also right in that kind of sweet spot of a delicate movie. A word you used there, Rebecca, was struggle. The family struggle. Sometimes the struggle is the dream, right? It's you don't even realize that this is the moment of beauty going on, because the struggle seems so rough when you're in that. It's not until you get past that you look back and you realize that was actually good times in your life as well. And I think Minari captures that exact feeling better than I think I've ever seen any movie do it. Watching it a second time today, as I was getting ready for the podcast, it really struck me that all those struggles are things that families go through. And I don't think they realize those are some of the good times of being a family and how important family is during those times.
Yeah, I think and also it's a movie that families could watch together. I can't remember, there's some, as you mentioned, Matt, there's some like hard times, and there's some like things that happen that are challenging, but I think like, it's a movie that would be intergenerational, which I think is great. And I think there are a lot of lessons that are universal. And yes, to that point, like absolutely, the struggle is the point. The journey is the life. That's what we all are experiencing all the time. So it's really a wonderful example of that idea.
It's the rare movie that I cry in films often. I'm not going to say that I don't. I get choked up often. But like about a half hour after the movie ended, I was just doing something else, like washing the dishes, and I started thinking about it, and I welled up again. I was like, oh my God, because the ending of the movie, what I liked, I won't spoil the ending, but what I liked is there's a conflict, obviously, in every story, right? That happens just before the end, and then the resolution happens at the very end, and it doesn't spell it out. It shows you and doesn't tell you what the resolution is, and I found that very satisfying and hopeful, and also like it sort of doesn't insult our intelligence enough to understand where the characters go from here. So it's just really well made all around, front to back.
Absolutely. It's interesting too, because I know, I think it's the Golden Globes. I might have the controversy wrong here, but I think it's the Golden Globes that has this nominated in Best Foreign Language Film. And it's really, really bizarre because this is like a lot of people would say this is one of the best American movies they've seen. And here it's going to be in the foreign category. It's bizarre and wrong.
Yeah, I think it has something to do with the percentage of the film that is in English or not. I agree. I think it's a movie that is like articulates America and the like the promise or the fallacy of the American dream so well. I saw that too. I just was confused. I mean, that's one of those moments where you're like, maybe the system that we've been working with for so long needs us for us to reflect on it. Maybe that this doesn't work the way it used to work, or maybe it never worked. And this is a good example of how it doesn't work.
Yep. Matt, you got a movie poster quote for us?
Yeah, this one's a tough one to boil down, but so I did my best here. I said honest, innocent, hopeful, and totally refreshing.
I went with pour yourself a Mountain Dew and enjoy a great American film.
It's water from the mountains. It's healthy. How many Jaws?
I love that mountain water.
Yeah.
How many Jaws? I'm going a strong 3.5 Jaws. I think it's darn near perfect.
Interesting. I went ahead and gave it 4 Jaws, 4 out of 4 here. I really think this probably would have made my top 10 of the year had I seen it sooner. It's a great movie.
Rebecca, we're on a 4 Jaw scale. How many Jaws?
Oh, I would give it 3.75 Jaws. Can I do that? Can I split the atom there a little bit? Yeah, I think it's, I only say that because I always think about audiences, and I could see some audiences finding it slow. I love a slow movie, but I think about the more like holistically what audiences will think, and the pacing is, very reserved. But I mean, I'm for that. Like First Cow. I mean, like give me First Cow any day over a lot of things.
Yeah.
Slow, but I loved it. But I could, just thinking about the wider viewing audience, I always like to
leave some wiggle room.
How to land.
Yeah. And to be honest, we always talk about that. At least I know I do on the podcast to let people know when we call it like a slow burn or have patience with a movie. Because you're right. You put Minari on a Friday night after a work week and you got some drinks. It might not play as well as it absolutely should. Do it at the right time, Jawheads, when you have time and patience with the movie, and you'll benefit the most from it.
There is a sag going into the third act. I will admit that is true. Absolutely.
Well, strong. We got 4 Jaws, 3.75, and 3.5 Jaws for Minari. Again, it opens limited release February 12th, and then 2 weeks later on POV everywhere you can rent it. So when you do see it, let us know what you think. You can shoot us an email, feedback@cinemajaw.com. Obviously, a great grandmother character in this film. And this is a case, I think, if years down the road we were doing grandmothers, this grandmother would have been on my top 5 list. So in honor of this character, we're doing our top 5 favorite grandmothers in movies. Rebecca, was this a tough list to come up with, or actually difficult to narrow down to 5? I
thought it was going to be really tough. And then I thought about it for about 5 minutes. And then I came away with like 7. And so I had to kill some darlings. So actually easier than I anticipated.
Well, you're getting us started at number 5.
Ooh, okay. I'm trying to decide if I should go with like an obvious choice or if I should do one of my not so obvious choices.
We'll have time for honorables.
Okay. So I'm going to do first The Grandmother from The Witches, the Nicholas Roeg version of The Witches, which is the 1990 film. So it was remade recently by Robert Zemeckis, which I have not seen. But the 1990 version with Angelica Houston is a favorite film of mine. I love Nicholas Roeg, real kind of deviation for him. And Grandma is Helga, and she's played by a woman named Mai Zetterling. And she knows how to deal with witches. That's what you want Grandma to do, and her grandson gets turned into a mouse. I mean, she's sort of the Van Helsing of the story. Yes. She's got some mystery and some even a little bit of magic to herself as well.
Right. Ryan, have you ever seen Witches, the original?
Embarrassingly, I still have not seen it.
All right. Well, go ahead and watch the original first.
Yep. I believe they're both streaming. Phil, can you double check? I know the remake is on HBO Max and exclusive, and I've seen it on there, but let me know where the original is, Phil.
I haven't seen the remake one either.
I have not.
So.
I kind of, those are sometimes those remakes, I kind of, when I hold the original so dear, I just can't, maybe I will down the road, but the Nicholas Roeg version is just Angelica Houston. It's like, she's the best too.
And her star was on top at that moment.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a big movie for her. All right. That swings it to my number 5. And I think we all knew going into this that somewhere we were going to have an Adam Sandler movie come up because for some damn reason.
Oh, did we? I
think we did because for some damn reason he seems to go with grandmas quite a bit in a lot of his films. Go figure. So I'm going to start where it nearly started. His second big film, Happy Gilmore, Frances Bay as Grandma Gilmore, who I think I put her on the list because of the scene that she does with Ben Stiller, where he's the orderly in the old folks home. And she's like, my fingers hurt. And he's like, oh yeah, well now your back's going to hurt because you just pulled yard duty. Like her comedic timing and the way she plays against him. She's fantastic in this movie. Like watch it again with fresh eyes just for Frances Bay's performance. And I promise you'll get something new from Happy Gilmore.
I do you have another Adam Sandler pick on your list, Matt?
We'll find out.
I went with, when we're doing our favorite characters, I felt it was almost a cheat in a way to pick an animated character on the list in some way. But that's where I went with my number 5 pick. It was an absolute tearjerker of a scene in Pixar's 2017 title character here, Coco. And she's technically the great grandmother of Miguel.
That counts.
And yeah, definitely it counts. And it's exactly what we're going for here on this list. And you want to highlight a scene here, Matt. No Adam Sandler in it, but let me tell you, the ending of Coco doesn't leave a dry eye in the theater when the two of them sing Remember Me is extremely powerful. And it's what Pixar does best.
Wow. You're starting out strong, Rye.
Wow. I mean, I wasn't sure if you were thinking animation when you were thinking characters of grandmas.
We'll find out. There's still a few more left.
All right. Well, that was my number 5, Coco. Into our 4s. What do we got, Rebecca?
Okay, so speaking of tearjerkers, I have Aurora Greenway from Terms of Endearment. This is Shirley MacLaine in the James L. Brooks film, 1983. She is more maybe remembered as a mother in this film, but her daughter, who becomes ill in the film, spoilers, has 2 small children. And there's a very, very famous scene that I can't even talk about without crying, which is when she's running through the hospital saying, give my daughter the shot, and Jack Nicholson is sort of her romantic lead. And I love Shirley MacLaine. If you've never seen Sweet Charity, she's a musical. She's got an amazing voice. She sings, she dances, she acts. It's great. Triple threat. I can't watch Terms of Endearment. I love that movie. I can't, it's too much. It's too hard, but her performance is spectacular. And maybe she won an Academy Award. That's a question. That's a fish tank question.
Let's throw it in the fish tank. Yeah. Throw it in the fish tank. I think she did win, but I'm not positive myself. Great performance. And I know the scene in the hospital. That's a rough one. We just rewatched
it not too long ago as a retro review. I think last year, it was 2019 or 2020 that we rewatched it. 2019, but fresh in my mind.
That was a good one.
Yep. All right. At number 4, I have Dina Dunnigan, who plays Nana in the M. Night Shyamalan return to form, The Visit. And not a good grandma, not a nice grandma, not the kind of Nana that you would want to have, but the physical performance that she puts on the screen. And listen, M. Night has slipped quite far down. His stock is not where it was when The Sixth Sense came out. But this, like I mentioned, was kind of a return to form with that horror mystery thing going on. And it was a solid movie. And that not due in small part to her physical performance. She is creepy. The way she moves through, she's sometimes completely disrobed and walking the halls at night, and it's freaking terrifying. Grandma, who knew she could be so scary? But in this movie, M. Night Shyamalan uses it to great effect, and we fear Nana. Yeah, that's my number 4 pick. You don't like this one?
That's a good one there. No, I do like this one. And in fact, I agree everything with what you said there about M. Night sort of bouncing back. This was a quality film after having quite a few duds.
Yeah, he had a string of them.
Now, I know my number 4. I'm just dreading talking about it because Matt's going to give me flack right away, but it's on my list, so you're going to have to put up with it, Matt. My number 4 pick here comes from the movie Titanic.
Oh, Jesus.
And it is old Rose DeWitt Bukater, played by Gloria Stewart. And
this is such a lame pick, Ryan.
Here it comes. But when we see Gloria Stewart and she's watching television with her granddaughter at the beginning and sees this news play that they've found a picture at the bottom of the ocean from the Titanic, and she sees that this is actually her in the drawing. It did a lot of things. I know you don't like the movie, Matt.
It sold 1 million movie tickets, I guess.
She is the actual connection between the story of Titanic and the modern world. And that connection helps sort of bind it together and make it as powerful as it is. There's all of a sudden now a connection from us right now today, when I'm speaking in 1997, and someone that was still on the Titanic. And that bridge really made it just hit home. She was 87 years old at the time she was nominated for an Academy Award for that role, the oldest person to date to be nominated. And I just loved the swan song of Gloria Stewart, who was a star way back in the day, did all kinds of projects and different things, and then hadn't seen her for the longest time, and then comes back to being, at the time, the biggest movie of all time and a huge character.
I don't get your strange fascination with this movie, dude.
Her story, when she starts off, when she I remember the line she uses. She says, the beds had never been slept in, the china had never been used, and they start to go back into the old Titanic, and you just get chills. I loved it.
Okay, all right.
Rebecca, where do you sit on Titanic? Yay or nay?
I was like 13 when it came out, and I saw it 7 times in the movie theater. I have not watched it since I was a teen, but it was a big deal. I mean, I recognize it and appreciate it and respect it for the place it holds in American cinema history. And I also appreciate the grandmother character, because I use that GIF all the time where she says, it's been 84 years or whatever she says. It's been, it's like, when someone's like, I've been at the doctor's office, I will respond to, they text me, I've been waiting at the DMV. And then I text the GIF of that.
It's worth it for the memes alone.
It's worth it for the memes.
All right. That was my number 4. Into our 3s we go.
Okay, so this is somewhat of a deeper cut. The film Poetry. It's a South Korean film by Lee Chang-dong. He directed Burning from 2 years ago, which maybe is the place where people recognize him. That was one of my favorite films of 2018. So Poetry, the character's name is Yang Mi-ja, and it's a film about a grandmother who is early onset Alzheimer's, and to combat it, she enrolls in a poetry writing class. And then some big drama comes in where there's a discovery within the family that something nefarious has happened. I can't say more without spoiling it, but the performance is, if you saw Burning, you know that Lee Chang-dong is a director who can really command sort of restrained performances with a lot going on underneath the surface. And this is no exception. And the woman who plays Yang Mi-ja, the grandmother, is Jeong Hee-yoon, I think is the actress's name. And she's just fantastic. I mean, she's got one of those faces that she's in almost every single scene, and she's got a face for the big screen. I mean, she's just hypnotic. It's a hypnotic performance and a really, really, really great film. If you liked Burning, Poetry, it's from 2010. So it's a little bit older, but it's fantastic.
Matt, you see what I'm doing
I see
here.
You're writing that down. That's a good recommendation.
It's a great one. Yeah.
I loved Burning. I'm right with you. That was one of my favorite films that year. Phil, do me a favor. See if Poetry is streaming on one of the big services. I'll be checking that one out for sure. Good pick.
I will say, this is a little bit of a tangent. I saw Burning at the Toronto International Film Festival, and there was a woman sitting next to me. And, in Burning, there's some things that burn, but it takes a while for them to burn. And the woman sitting, she was a slightly older lady. I don't think she was an industry person. She was just watching the movie. And she goes, "Oh, burning."
She connected the dots.
Yeah, it was amazing. It was amazing.
It's great when you get to watch that click for somebody. All right, Rye, you might want to keep that pen out. This one is definitely another hot recommendation. My second choice from a horror film, Jamie Lee Curtis actually graduated to the role of grandmother as the same Laurie Strode that we met way back in 1978 in Halloween 2018. Weak? I just like the continuation of her character quite a bit. In fact, I would say that she was probably one of the strongest female characters on screen that year. You know, she kicks some serious ass. She becomes the hunter who's chasing Michael Myers. By the end of the movie, you're more afraid of Laurie Strode than you are of Michael Myers. And plus, I just love Jamie Lee Curtis. Her entire career arc, which I don't think is anywhere close to being done, has been amazing to follow. So, and this is a big part of her recent string of comeback hits. So I'm on board for the sequel. Big time.
I'm giving Matt a lot of flack. I like to just say weak, but I know we reviewed it on the show, and I was a fan of, not as big a fan as you were, but
better than
was
Titanic, dude.
Oh, come on now.
Better than Titanic.
You can't go there with it.
I went there.
It's not better than Titanic, but it was the best Halloween movie in some time. I don't know. They were on like Halloween 23 when this one came out. And finally, it was like another hit finally.
Right. Yeah. Another sort of return with John Carpenter coming back, at least in a sort of advisory role, and a lot of the principals coming back. It was a good one.
My number 3 pick, you got to go with a crude grandmother for comedy, somewhat what you were looking at with the Happy Gilmore pick, Matt. And I went over a couple that do make me laugh at times, but this one I remember watching it and really laughing out loud numerous times at some of her crude jokes. And I'm going with the grandmother in the 2005 film Wedding Crashers. And the grandmother is played by Ellen Burtney Dow. All right. And she only has a few scenes in this movie, but her best one is this dinner that takes place with the whole family. And she's at an age where she just says what's ever on her mind. And so she's talking about FDR and says some rude things about FDR's wife. She calls out a grandchild about his sexuality, and everybody's like just stunned. It's one of those moments where everybody has to say like, Grandma, you can't just say that, you know. those moments. And at the end, there's a shotgun involved. She's just hilarious.
Yeah. Relatable too, for sure.
Old people feel that they can just say whatever the hell they want.
At times. All right. Into our number 2s, I guess we are going now. Rebecca, what have you got at number 2?
Well, you already called my number 2. I had Laurie Strode from Halloween 2018.
Man. See, Ryan? Wow. I'm sorry, Rebecca.
Weak, Ryan. Is that right?
Wow.
Weak is what I think you said. I love the original Halloween. John Carpenter Halloween is one of my favorite movies. I think it is.
Thank you.
It is a fantastic film. It is a terrifying film. It is one that is always good when you revisit it, and with much ode to Jamie Lee Curtis and the character Laurie Strode as sort of the like one of the original sort of final girls. And I feel like she got a real short end of the stick in a lot of Halloween interpretations over the years. So I loved that she was this like hardcore grandma in the David Gordon Green film. And I also, to your point, felt like it really did pay the proper respect to the original. It wasn't a perfect film. None of them really are after the original. But she was just great. And I agree with you that it was nice to see that Michael Myers and Laurie Strode really were like at the same level, the same level of kind of intensity. They were well matched, because so often he's just like destroying people. So it was nice to see that he actually had like a formidable opponent in Laurie Strode, and she was a grandma, and Judy Greer is great. I mean, it was one of those films that I was not disappointed. I don't think it was, a fantastic, film for the ages, but I was satisfied. All of my itches were scratched, and Jamie Lee Curtis was great. And it was, she was like, it was the year of like the hardcore like movie woman. And so I appreciated that. So it's my number 2. So surprisingly, I was surprised by that, but that was my number 2.
Stoked for the sequel?
Yeah. I mean, I will always go see Halloween movies. It's weird because I also am not really drawn to like horror films, but Halloween and also I love John Carpenter. Big Trouble in Little China is one of my favorite movies of all time.
You are speaking my language.
so I sort of just have there's a soft spot in my heart for a franchise that he built.
Awesome. I'm speechless, honestly. All right, into my number 2.
Matt, I'll let you enjoy the moment if you just want to savor this for a second.
Here's the thing, like somebody who is doing huge things in film right now in Chicago and really like the world, like Rebecca shares some of my taste in film. It makes me feel tremendously good.
Go ahead, Matt.
I'm so glad.
Love it. All right. At number 2, we recently lost this actress, unfortunately. She was a treat and a treasure. Cloris Leachman as Evelyn, the grandmother in Spanglish. To answer your question, Ryan, yes, there is another Adam Sandler movie on my list. It's not intentional. And really, when you think of Adam Sandler movies, this isn't one that springs to mind. This is one of those where he's really doing some acting Adam Sandler movies. Probably, I mean, outside of Uncut Gems, maybe his best acting that he does. But Cloris Leachman is sort of the perfect comedic release in this movie because Sandler is playing very serious. Oh my God, throw it in the fish tank. I cannot remember who plays the mom, but she's really good as well. And then Paz Vega comes in as a tutor and there's a culture clash. You guys have seen Spanglish, I'm sure. But it's really Cloris who is this drunken alcoholic grandmother who gets the most laughs in the whole movie. And, you know, she's great. She was great in like Young Frankenstein. And I just love Cloris Leachman. One of her later roles, one of my favorites of hers.
She's an Oscar winner too.
Yeah.
Last Picture Show. She won Best Supporting Actress. Yeah.
That's right.
She's great. R.I.P.
Speaking of Oscar winners, my number 2, 1981, and this ties in, Matt, to memories of my grandmother. I went with Katharine Hepburn as Ethel in On Golden Pond. And this was a family favorite of mine. And I think because it mimicked a lot of what was going on with our family. And I've spoken about how we had a summer home that my grandparents owned. And both my mom and my mom's sister, my aunt, would then gather at this house. And it was with my grandparents, and my grandma's brothers and sister would also be there. They'd be like my great aunts and uncles. Mm-hmm. So it was a large gathering at a summer home on a lake with boats. And it was like the first time getting to know my grandparents when I was getting to that age of, when you're young, you don't really ask the hard-hitting questions. But when you start getting like that, like 7th grade, and you start really actually appreciating your grandparents, and those memories of just being out at the lake and my grandma watching me swim and all that good stuff. And it happens here on Golden Pond with this older couple played by Katharine Hepburn, and opposite her is Henry Fonda, who I believe both won Academy Awards for On Golden Pond. I know Henry Fonda won. Throw it in the fish tank. What Oscars On Golden Pond won? But it was heavily rewarded at that awards. Great movie if you haven't seen it. It's a family film. It's a nice film. It'll tug at your heartstrings. Rebecca, you're a fan of this one?
Yes, that's a classic. I remember the VHS. We had the VHS at home. I remember as a younger kid watching it, not connecting, but then as I got a little bit older, I really, really appreciated it. And Jane Fonda too is mm-hmm. the daughter, you know, so it's just, a really, really wonderful film. The whole, I remember the VHS cover, everything was sort of beige.
Yeah.
That's the thing I remember the most, but within that beige, beyond the beige, there was some really, really wonderful, the performances are spectacular.
I think I saw this movie when I was like way too young to understand it, like 5 or 6 years old, but I've seen it. It's been a long, long time. Probably time to revisit.
All right. This is Cinemajaw, and this is our number 1 picks for favorite grandmothers in films. Rebecca, what do you got sitting there?
All right. My number 1 is somewhat recent. It is Nene from The Farewell, which is the Lulu Wang film from 2019. So this film was, a Sundance darling, based on actually This American Life, that was, I think, Lulu Wang, the director, wrote for This American Life, but there was a connection to the radio show, and based on a, as they say, this is based on an actual lie, based on a true lie. And the performance of Nene, the grandmother, is really fantastic. The film, she's ill, and the family sort of rallies around pretending she's not telling her that she's ill, because they're kind of like, we don't tell her, then we can sort of all like celebrate each other rather than focusing on the illness. And the reason I chose this as my number one is so much of the film is based around meals and food. And Nene is like, she's this matriarchal figure who is always cooking and feeding, and food equals love, and gathering as a family equals love. And I wanted to be in that kitchen. I wanted to be with that family. I wanted to be with her. And this is another like intergenerational story that Awkwafina is the granddaughter, and the chemistry between them is really wonderful. And there's a scene where they're sort of like doing this, like kind of like some exercises in the yard, and the grandmother's teaching Awkwafina, who's living in America, how to kind of like find her voice. And it's just, all of it's lovely. I wept the whole film. I really cried the whole way through, even though there's a lot of humor in it. And all the performances in that film were really kind of underrated and maybe not underrated. I think people recognized it for what it was, but that's my number one, Nene from The Farewell.
I loved it too. That is a great pick.
Hands down.
Absolutely.
Like, I want a scallion pancake made by Nene, like so badly.
It's right in the first scene when she gets to China. They're all just in the kitchen cooking. So
yeah,
I loved it.
Yeah.
All right. At number one, Ryan, I do have an animated film. And I went with Grandma Tala, voiced by Rachel House from the movie Moana. And of all the grandmothers on my list, I think she is the most central to the plot of the movie she's in. Well, obviously Jamie Lee Curtis is pretty central to Halloween, but she's very much the fairy godmother type character we're familiar with in a lot of these Disney type stories. But she sort of transcends that role. I think usually they're too ethereal and too pretend and too magical, but she's grounded. She's giving Moana good advice, practical advice throughout the film. But then, of course, there is this transformation later where it's more about her spirit. And I don't want to spoil this for anybody who hasn't seen Moana. Please go see Moana. But there's a scene where we see her later in the film, but first we see this giant stingray, which is kind of like her symbol. It's so beautiful. And I mean, to this day, I've seen Moana because I have little kids, probably about 10, maybe 15 times, a lot of times. And it still gets me. It still gets me every time. I love that character.
Such a softie, man.
I know.
I love it.
What do you got, Ryan?
So it turns out that me and Rebecca also share some tastes, as my number one pick is also Nene from The Farewell. And Matt knew this was my number one, because usually we don't talk much about our lists so that we have the element of surprise on the show. But somehow this came up in our banter, and I said, hey, don't take The Farewell because it's my number one. And then what happens? Rebecca has it as her number one as well. It's perfect. No, everything that you said. I mean, there's a sense of like a lived in feel to The Farewell, just like you guys mentioned about the food. It's a family that you feel is an actual unit together. And I credit that a lot to Awkwafina as well. She was great in there. The family dynamic is fantastic. The story it's based on is kind of crazy and heartwarming. And just the whole entire journey that they take to go over to China is wonderful. The exercises they do and what happens at the end. Don't want to spoil it again in case you haven't seen The Farewell. Is just, I remember coming out of the theater and you're right. I had like tears in my eyes, but was like laughing at the same time. Yeah. And that's sometimes the absolute best reaction you can ever have to a movie, is be crying and laughing at the same time,
For sure.
So that was my number one, The Farewell. Honorable mentions. Did you have some? Mine, I believe all were mentioned, but one. I had The Visit, Moana, Terms of Endearment, and the only one not mentioned was Relic, which was the horror film last year that I thought needed to be noted.
Robin Nevin is the actress who played Edna in The Relic, and that was a really good performance. Another one that had some physicality to it, and it was a creepy horror movie and an interesting way to explore dementia. I liked it a lot. My only one that wasn't mentioned, going back to Happy Madison, Grandma's Boy was the name of the movie, and it was Doris Roberts, who most people probably know from Everybody Loves Raymond, and I think she is hilarious. And finally, we get to see her, with some screen time. She's funny as hell. I'd sit down and watch that movie again. It's kind of hokey and stupid, but it's a fun, hokey, stupid movie.
Any honorable mentions for you, Rebecca?
Yeah. I mean, some of these are grandpas, but I couldn't not mention the majority of the cast from Cocoon, the Ron Howard film. I think, Jessica Tandy is in there. She's great. And married to a real, plays an on-screen spouse to her real life spouse, Hume Cronin. So that's a great one. And then this was a bit of a stretch, so I didn't include it, but Regina King's character in If Beale Street Could Talk becomes a grandmother by the end of the film. And she's such a great mother figure that I was like, well, that's a bit of a cheat, but talk about like a sort of a mother protector, a leader of the family character who just really was fantastic on screen and Oscar winning quite recently. That's directed by Barry Jenkins.
Yep.
Quality film right there. If we missed your favorite grandmother in movies and you have Twitter pulled up, shoot us a tweet, or you can always email us feedback@cinemajaw.com. We're going to take a quick break. Still to come, Matt. We are playing Jodie Foster movie trivia plus a CinemaWAR, pitting the Afflecks against Owen and Luke Wilson. Stick with us.
To kick off Jodie Foster Month, we'll take a look back at her 1997 film Contact. In this scene, Foster tries to get funding for her research into extraterrestrial life.
The Very Large Array in New Mexico is the key to our chances for success. With its 27 linked radio telescopes, we can search more accurately than at any other conventional facility. Now, we've already gotten the preliminary approval to buy the telescope time from the government. Now all we really need is the money.
A nice presentation, Doctor. But while our foundation arm does have a mandate to support experimental programs, we must confess that your proposal seems less like science and more like science fiction.
Science fiction? You're right. It's crazy. In fact, it's even worse than that. Nuts. Want to hear something really nutty? I heard of a couple guys that want to build something called an airplane. You get people to go in it and then fly around like birds. It's ridiculous, right? Or what about breaking the sound barrier, or rockets to the moon, or atomic energy, or a mission to Mars? Science fiction, right? Look, all I'm asking is for you to just have the tiniest bit of vision, to step back for 1 minute and look at the big picture. To take a chance on something that just might end up being the most profoundly impactful moment for humanity, for the history of history.
Hi, Matt, Rye, and fellow Jawheads. This is Lauren O'Neill from 101 WKQX, and I am so late. I cannot believe I missed your 500th episode, but I wanted to wish you a happy 502nd episode of the greatest movies podcast ever. So here's to 502 more. And by the way, I've got a Malort shot waiting for both of you. Cheers.
And we are back on CinemaJaw, hanging out with Rebecca Fons, the new director of programming over at the Gene Siskel Film Center. But this isn't the only theater that she works with. I found this very interesting. I read that you had actually renovated a movie theater in Iowa and started working over there, curating films.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that. Where do you find a rundown theater and renovate it? I love the story of this. I love it.
Well, the movie theater, it's called the Iowa Theater, and it's in Winterset, Iowa, which is my hometown. Also the hometown of the birthplace of John Wayne. So my birthplace and John Wayne's birthplace. And you find it, I found it because it was about 2 blocks from the house that I grew up in. Winterset's a really small community, about 7,000 people. And the movie theater, the Iowa Theater, was the theater that I spent some formative years. It was where I had my first kiss, it was where I spent most of my weekends. It was a, pretty critical place it was kind of my second home. And in 2015, the theater, which, with all respect, it was not it had fallen on hard times even when I was a kid, sticky floors and bad projection. And so in 2015, it closed. And so you can imagine it hadn't really been updated. It had not converted to digital projection, nothing. So it closed in 2015, really unceremoniously. And my mother, who still lives in Winterset, my mother, Marianne, she was like, well, the movie theater closed. And you've been at the film festival, Chicago International Film Festival, for 9 years. Are you interested in changing things up? And do you want to buy this movie theater with me? So we did. We bought it,
No
and
way. That's awesome.
yeah. And we bought it in late summer 2015, and we reopened it in May of 2017. So 2 years to the day of when it closed, we reopened it. And I left my job at the film festival after many, many years. I gave them like 6-month notice. I left very slowly. And we spent 2 years raising over $1 million and picking carpet pattern and buying projectors. And I learned how to pop popcorn and buy butter and project movies and hire staff and everything. So from soup to nuts, we really rebuilt it from the ground floor. I mean, we used amazing local crew and contractors, and it's reopened. It's actually open now. It reopened in Iowa. The COVID mitigations are sort of the Wild West over there. So it's been reopened since June, just showing repertory titles twice a week for limited audiences. But yeah, it's a second run theater and a repertory house.
That's awesome.
That is awesome.
Matt, I think we got a remote in somewhere down the rood when it's safe to travel out to Iowa. We can go out there and do a podcast from there.
Yeah, you just go straight west on I-80.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's 5.5 hours. It's no big deal.
Totally doable. That's a day trip.
Rebecca, again, for the Jawheads listening that want to support the Gene Siskel Film Center, where should we send them online? SiskelFilmCenter.org, where you can watch films that have been curated in our Film Center from Your Sofa lineup. And you can also check out some of our virtual conversations and our screen to screen program, and also make a donation, become a member, gift a membership, however you want to support. We appreciate that.
Nice.
Definitely do it, Jawheads. Matt, before we get to CinemaWAR and before we get to trivia, we threw a bunch of items into the fish tank. I don't even know if there's any water left in the fish tank with as many items as we tossed in there. Let's open up that fish tank.
Wait a moment! It's fish! Isn't it?
DC! Wake up! Wake up! No, Pat, it's a giant glass bowl. Hey, there's some fish folk.
Who's coming with me besides Flipper? Here.
That's a Sicilian message. It means Luca Brasi sleeps with the fishes.
You're going to need a bigger boat.
Yeah, thank you guys. There is a lot. There wasn't a whole lot after the review, and I was planning on talking about Asian American representation in Jodie Foster's army. No time for any of it. Those topics will have to wait. Not to be dismissive to Asian American representation. Our first one: how old are Michael Douglas, Jodie Foster, and Sean Penn? And how old were they in 1997? Okay, so Michael Douglas is currently 76, Jodie Foster 58, Sean Penn, who replaced Jodie Foster because of the age difference, only 60, so only 2 years older than her. And in 97, this is kind of weird now that I look at it. Michael Douglas was 52 and Jodie was 34. So almost a 20-year gap, and Sean Penn was doable. 36. It's possible, but it is a weird. Could you imagine? We all have siblings. Could you imagine if?
Right, there was a 20-year difference. It is funny how as you get older, that gap doesn't seem as big, right? Yeah. But at certain points in your life, and probably at that point, maybe Foster, after hearing that, made the right choice, I guess.
Yeah, could be.
But still, you know how Hollywood is. They pull that stuff off all the time.
Well, I wonder if
how Scarlett Johansson, right? 15 in that movie.
I wonder if there was some vanity in that choice, though, No doubt.
Maybe it'll be a fact later on in the month. Our next one are both of the Witches movies streaming. So the Anne Hathaway one is on HBO Max. Unfortunately, the 90s version is not as easy to find. You can purchase it or rent it on all of the platforms, but just ready to go, including a subscription, it is not there. Our next one, did Shirley MacLaine win an Academy Award for Terms of Endearment? And she did.
I thought so, yeah.
Of her 6 nominations, this was actually her only one, really surprising to me. Is poetry streaming. This one, I have some really good ass news for everybody. Poetry is not only streaming, but it is streaming on my favorite streaming service, Hoopla. For anyone who doesn't know what it is,
I have Hoopla.
Yeah, it's literally the only one that's actually free. All you need is your library card. I did look, and the Roald Dahl Book Witches is not you can't rent the book, the ebook rather, on Hoopla, which is a bummer. But there's thousands of other books, as well as for world movies. I really would say this is the way to go.
In fact, they must really like this director, because that is how I saw Burning. Actually, also it was. If it wasn't the first movie I saw on Hoopla, it was within the first 3 that I actually used Hoopla for this movie. Great that you brought that up, Phil. Hoopla and also Canopy, I guess, around the country is elsewhere. If you have a library card, you just sign in and you get to rent movies for free. Literally, it's a free streaming service.
And again, the other cool thing about them is that a lot of them are like for educational purposes, since it's associated with the library. So we get these really great world movies that American audiences otherwise wouldn't really have that much access to. Super cool.
Poetry's going on my queue. Good one.
Who plays the mom in Spanglish? That's Taya Leone from Bad Boys.
Thank you.
Well, you could see why you forgot the actress's name. Everybody forgot Taya Leone.
That's not true. She was great in Spanglish.
You just did.
Okay, but not everybody does. She's tremendous in this film.
And David Duchovny's ex-wife.
Really?
This is true. Yeah,
I think they're
they were
divorced.
married.
I think so. They were married.
They are divorced. They divorced in 2014.
There you go. Fish tank right on it.
Yeah, see, Rebecca was really more than me. Our last one, what Oscars did On Golden Pond win? It won 3 different Academy Awards. Henry Fonda got Best Actor, Katharine Hepburn for Best Actress, and Ernest Thompson for Best Screenplay. And not that 3 Oscar wins is anything to slouch at. It was also nominated for 7 more. It was total. Wow. This came up 10 times at the Academy Awards the year it came out.
It was a big one for sure.
It was a big one. That everything, Phil?
That is finally everybody in here.
All right, jump back in that fish tank.
You betcha.
Matt, it brings us to a segment called
CinemaWAR.
And the war, it works like this. Me and Matt, we're fighting on a topic. Our guest, Rebecca Fons, gets to play judge and jury and tell the listeners who she thinks won this CinemaWAR. Phil, we were talking about the Afflecks against Owen and Luke Wilson. Remind the jawheads at home what today's CinemaWAR topic is.
Yeah, it's a battle of the brothers this week as we pit Owen and Luke Wilson against the Affleck bros. Ryans, your stance is that the Wilsons continue to wow us. And Matt, you're arguing that Ben and Casey are more than a bunch of quacks. Let this CinemaWAR begin.
Matt, the Wilson brothers busted out onto the scene in 1996 with the film Bottle Rocket, directed by the great Wes Anderson. The Wilson brothers are part of the Wes Anderson family tree. Heck, they're the backbone of that tree. They appear in 7 of his 9 films, and let's be honest, write it on a stationery, in fact. Wes Anderson films are better than anything the Afflecks have ever done.
Rye, do you like apples? Do you like apples? Do you like apples, Ryan?
I do.
Ben and Casey burst onto the scene with Good Will Hunting, which to this day is often quoted as a favorite film of many. The Wilsons came flickering into existence in Bottle Rocket. A good film, sure, but comparatively obscure. So who makes a better entrance? Score 1 for Team Affleck. How do you like them apples?
I don't like those at all. Luke Wilson, I want to concentrate on here. Being in old school, scores major points for comedy fans, as does his little masterpiece called Idiocracy. He is also great in more serious fare, such as Vacancy and 3:10 to Yuma. Take a look at how many films Luke Wilson has in his filmography, a staggering amount. He is a working man's actor.
Yeah, you had to look all that up because no one remembers him. Who are the better actors? I know the Wilsons are funny, Rye, but don't make me laugh. The Afflecks each have an acting Oscar. Ben directed a Best Picture winner. The Wilsons don't even come close, starring mostly in broad comedies. They're typecast at this stage, showing up in cameos in Zombieland. You know who doesn't have any comedic cameos? Affleck.
This needs to be mentioned. I'm glad you brought this up. Owen Wilson co-wrote Bottle Rocket, Rushmore, and The Royal Tenenbaums. He broke out from that as one of Hollywood's funniest actors, appearing in Meet the Parents, Zoolander, I Spy, Wedding Crashers, Cars. But maybe his best, 2011's Midnight in Paris, the last great Woody Allen film, and he was the perfect leading man in it. Owen Wilson is maybe the most underrated movie star in Hollywood, damn it.
Maybe. When I say Wilson movies, you might think Legally Blonde, Wedding Crashers, Love and Mercy, and Castaway. When I say Affleck movies, you might think Argo, Manchester by the Sea, The Town, and dare I repeat, Good Will Hunting. Those filmographies do not balance.
The Afflecks have a few hits, bet, sure, but overall their careers are so rocky, I get seasick looking at it. The Wilsons' private lives stay out of the spotlight, letting their comedy and acting do the talking. Matt, you may forget, Owen Wilson was in Anaconda, the greatest snake movie of all time. The man has range. The Wilsons are hilarious. They know how to pick their roles and have a steadiness to their careers, and neither of them dated J-Lo.
All right, here's the real truth, though. You take away Wes Anderson, and do we even have a Wilson brothers in the discussion? The Afflecks have both directed hits, starred in blockbusters and critical gems alike, and written their own material. They're both a triple threat. Don't make me go old school on you, Ryan. Start busting out movie title puns, or I'll bust a bottle rocket up your Royal Tenenbaum.
Whoa. We are button heads here on CinemaWAR. As we do each and every week, we throw it to our guest, Rebecca Fons. What did you think of this CinemaWAR?
Oh man, I was writing down notes furiously because you were both making excellent points. And I'm trying so hard to put my personal point of view to the side and just listen to the counterpoint here. Because you both delivered really strong arguments.
Well, thank you.
Just bravo on both the defense and the offense, the right and the left. Both of you did really great jobs. I think though, I want to just think a little bit about these performers off of the screen and sort of the role they play in the zeitgeist and in American culture. And that's going to lead me to my winner, because I find that Ben and Casey have become something beyond their performances. But that is not a good thing. I find that I struggle to watch Ben Affleck because now all I see are the memes and I think of J-Lo, it was brought up. I think he gets kind of in the slurry of who he is outside of his performances. And I don't know that he has ever risen above that. I'm going to say this. Hopefully he's not listening. Ben, I'm sorry. You're great.
He listens every week. I'm just like,
And I will say that in Good Will Hunting, Ben Affleck is the best he's ever been. But that was a long time ago. So I think ultimately I have to go for the Wilson brothers.
Wow.
Because they exist as personalities, but their personalities exist within the films that they are in. So even though when Owen Wilson shows up, there's always a little bit of a laugh because he's sort of a funny character just in who he is and the way he talks and, but he still exists within the film. I never stray to who they are outside, which is maybe unfair. Maybe I should just be, choosing this based on your both arguments and their performances, but their performances are wrapped up in with who they are.
It's tough, difficult to extract the two. I get it. I totally get it.
And also Zoolander.
Yes.
That's fair.
Zoolander.
That's fair. Zoolander for the win.
And Anaconda.
And Anaconda, yes. And 310 to Yuma, which Luke Wilson is in. Luke Wilson is great. Luke Wilson is like the heart and soul of Rushmore, I would argue. Not Rushmore, excuse me, of Royal Tenenbaums. And also, OR Scrubs. I mean, that's like, come on.
The best line.
They've got some lines that are repeated in our world, but those lines are from, like, our memory of them is from their film performances, whereas, like, Ben and Casey, it's from, like, their IRL.
Paparazzi.
Yeah. Which is not their fault, but
some of it's their fault.
Some of it's their fault for sure.
Matt, that earns me 20 seconds of jaw time to rant and rave on whatever I want. And looking at that picture of Salt Lake City behind Rebecca, I had this thought, just looking at the film schedule. We watched that trailer for Bliss. There's a trailer out there for Kong versus Godzilla. Rebecca, you got to be pumped for that. And we got Earwig coming out, which is the first Studio Ghibli computer animated. I am so excited for movies in 2021. I can't even tell you. So look at the calendar. Let's have a great year here, Matt, as we keep going with Cinemajaw and talking about movies. It's going to be a fun one.
All right. You just pumped me up, Ryan. I'm ready to run a few laps around my house.
All right. Well, it's time to play some music I hear in the background, and that can only mean one thing. It's time to play some movie trivia in honor of Jodie Foster, who we are celebrating all month of February. We're playing Jodie Foster movie trivia. Rebecca, you're our guest. You get to choose if you want to go first or let Matt go first. There are steals, and if you get hung up on any questions, you get one rescue. Rescue me, Ryan. I have clues to all the questions. They start off easy.
I'm going to let Matt go first.
Oof. Question number 1 over to Matt K. Interesting play here. Matt, one of Foster's early roles was in the 1976 film Taxi Driver with Robert De Niro. Who directed it?
Why am I blanking on this? Is Francis Ford Coppola?
Start off easy. That is incorrect on a question 1. We will be talking about this for years to come.
About it. I don't want to talk about it ever again.
Who directed Taxi Driver, Rebecca?
Martin Scorsese. Your boy, Marty.
There it is. Wow. Matt K. Maybe your biggest whiff in trivia history, perhaps?
It's up there. Boy, I'm going to get some tweets for that one.
Yeah. Question 2 over to Rebecca. In 1991, Jodie Foster appears in the movie Little Man Tate. Who directed that film?
She did. She directed that film.
That is correct. Jodie Foster stars and directs in Little Man Tate. 2-0, Rebecca. Question 3 over to Matt. Name the Western that Jodie Foster made with Mel Gibson in 1994. It was based on a TV show.
Yeah. And the star of the old TV show was a supporting cast member in it. This was Maverick.
He knows Maverick. He is correct on that. Doesn't know Scorsese, but he knows his Maverick. It's 2-1. Rebecca, question 4 is over to her. Name the 1988 movie which won Jodie Foster her first Oscar. In it, she plays a rape victim trying to get justice served for the men who committed the crime.
The Accused.
That is correct. 3-1, Rebecca. Keep pouring it on, Rebecca. I love when Matt loses. It is over to Matt for question 5. 2011 film Carnage is about 2 couples getting together after their kids get in a fight. One couple is Kate Winslet and Christoph Waltz. The other couple is Jodie Foster and who?
What year? Did you mention a year?
2011.
Christoph Waltz.
Christoph Waltz and Kate Winslet were one couple. The other couple was Jodie Foster and who?
John Travolta.
Oh, man, that is
I have
incorrect.
no idea. I guess I could have used my lifeline there. Probably needed to.
Rebecca, you get a chance for a steal here.
I know this because I saw this in the theater and the casting was really weird. It's John C. Reilly.
It is John C. Reilly, yes.
That is weird casting.
He's very tall and she's not very tall.
Plus he's John C. Reilly, you know?
Right.
It's an odd casting.
The movie almost didn't work because of the casting. I saw it also, and I remember thinking Kate Winslet and Christoph Waltz were very strange together as well. So.
It's like a chamber piece. They're all in the same room. It was based on a play. Maybe you said that. Yeah, it's an odd one. I don't think it performed very well.
It is 4-1 Rebecca. It's a slaughter at this point. Question 6 is over to her. We all know Foster won another Oscar for Silence of the Lambs, as did Anthony Hopkins, as did the director of the film. Name him.
Jonathan Demme.
Yep. You gave that one away earlier in the show. I know. But Matt wouldn't
I would have
have
forgotten
that.
it. Yeah.
Yep, I'm sure. It's 5-1. The ball game is over. Last two questions
my
here,
lifeline.
Matt.
Damn it. All right. Let's save some face.
There you go. Matt, name the 2007 film that sees Jodie Foster play a radio host who turns into a vigilante after her and her partner are attacked by a bunch of thugs.
I mean, okay, I have some guesses, but I'll just say Rescue Me, Ryan.
Whoa, Rescue Me, Ryan on question 7. Your clue is be brave. You know this one.
Be brave. I mean, I really don't know it. I don't know how brave ties in either. The bold and the brave. I don't know.
Oh, Jesus.
Panic Room.
I want to see that movie, The Bold and the Brave.
I think that was a daytime soap opera or something.
Rebecca, you got a chance for a steal and to keep pouring it on here.
The brave one.
There it is, Matt K. The brave one.
I don't think I've
is.
ever even heard of that movie.
Yeah.
It's decent.
Yeah.
It's decent.
You know what's really weird is just recently we have a projector that needed fixing, and I took it into the repair guy and he fixed it. And and to show me that he fixed it, he put in the brave one to like show me that he made it work. This was literally like a week ago. I would not have remembered that except for that detail.
See, these are the experiences you bring to a game of trivia that I could never match.
It is 6-1. Complete massacre. Last question of the game, over to Rebecca. Jodie Foster has made one movie with Liam Neeson. Name it.
Nell.
She is on fire. Absolutely. 7-1. Rebecca wins this one.
Damn, my hat is off to you. Virtual handshake.
Yes, I'm a big Jodie Foster fan, so that was slightly unfair because I happen to know her oeuvre very well.
I should have known the director of Taxi Driver, though. I appreciate
hands down.
Yeah, I don't know what I was.
Well, so many people have stolen from that movie, so it's like a slush in your brain. I understand.
Yeah.
If it came down to a tie, we call it a jawbreaker. This question would have been over to Rebecca. Jodie Foster, is she one of the absolute Hollywood greats?
Is that an objective question or a subjective question?
This is the jawbreaker.
I would say she's one of the greats.
I agree with that. I agree with that.
It is objective.
You would have got that correct.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
She directed one of my favorite movies. She directed one of my favorite movies of all time, Home for the Holidays, which is a great movie with Holly Hunter that no one has seen. Well, some people have seen. It's a wonderful film.
I've seen it. It's been a while. It's a Christmas movie. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanksgiving, family coming together. Robert Downey Jr. And Bancroft. It's Charles Durning. It's wonderful.
The real jawbreaker was this: age of Anthony Hopkins closest to. Matt, you got to guess.
Hopkins has got to be, if he's not in his 80s, I would say he's really, really close. Let's go with 81.
Lock him in at 81. Rebecca, you got to guess?
Let's go with 85.
That might be even closer.
Doing the math here. Can we call this one a tie? He's 83.
Yeah, split the difference. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll take a tie. Nice.
Yep.
He's a treasure, man. Still acting. He's still killing it.
Really excited for people to see The Father,
yes.
Which made my top 10 in 2020. And I know it's one of these also delaying for award season. So we'll talk about it more at some point here on Cinemajaw. And it does bring us to the end of a great podcast. First and foremost, we got to thank our guest, Rebecca. This was a total blast. Thanks for coming on.
My pleasure. Thank you both and all and three. All thank you so much for making it so much fun.
You got it.
I'm looking forward to getting over to the Gene Siskel Film Center.
I was just going to say that. We got to get out there.
Yes. Yep. And hopefully reopening will happen sooner than later, and people will feel confident and come back to the movies in person, because I will never like be annoyed with anyone talking in a movie or eating popcorn loudly in a movie. I just miss my fellow moviegoers so much. So we'll get there. I feel like we are closer every day to being in movie theaters again together than we have been.
I agree. Well said.
Yep. Matt, we also got to thank our producer, our editor, Filmy and Phil.
Oh, you know it, guys. So excited.
Also got to thank the sponsors.
Yeah, thanks to Overcast and the Chicago Podcast Co-op, who help us get great sponsors like them.
If you would like to support Cinemajaw, the easiest way to do so is by leaving us a review wherever you're listening to this podcast.
Yes, and while you're at it, please click subscribe, especially if that's on YouTube. We're trying to grow our subscribers there, so hit subscribe. Thank you.
Until next week, I'm Ryan, the movie guy.
I'm Matt K.
And keep on jawing about the movies.